Okay. Well, thanks a lot. Everyone can hear me okay? Okay. So I'm Bruce. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm very grateful to the TLC people for inviting me and to having this opportunity to share a little bit of what I've learned. So um, I'm going to teach mostly about how now in our lives we can start to prepare for death and beyond by reducing things to a few simple points. Uh, First of all, I am not a realized person, and I certainly have no memories of me being in the bardo, nor can I perceive other beings in the bardo. So a lot when it comes to the bardos, most of what I'll say, or all of what I'll say, is simply based on what I've learned from my teachers. And I don't know anything about you. Some of you I know, but I don't see you on the screen. So I presented the proposition for this class for beginning and intermediate students. So hopefully everyone here fits into the category of beginning and intermediate. It's hard to figure out what that means, but hopefully it works. I plan to present some points and do a few guided meditations as we progress. And if there's time at the end to have questions and answers. So I think to understand this process, we have to start at the beginning, basic Buddhism. So there are many ways to present basic Buddhism, but I think for the purpose of this class, we can divide all beings into two classes, enlightened and unenlightened. Okay. The Buddha and other great masters and bodhisattvas are enlightened, and in the state of enlightenment, they have all these qualities and are free of suffering. The rest of us are unenlightened, and we don't have those qualities, and we suffer. We have various levels of suffering, some of them subtle, some of them, unfortunately, very gross. But all beings, whether Buddhas or ordinary people like ourselves, have Buddha nature, which means that dormant within us as ordinary beings, we have the potential to become Buddhas. Buddhas have realized that potential. We haven't. But we, and all sentient beings, including insects and snakes and things, beings like that, have the potential to become enlightened. But we are distracted from the state of enlightenment. First, we are distracted because we have confused perception, and based on that confused perception, we have all sorts of negative emotions that arise to meet those confused and interact with those confused perceptions. The main ones that we think of most are desire or attachment, anger/aversion, pride/arrogance, jealousy, envy, and a whole slew of emotions that go in the ignorance category, the ignorance, sleepiness, dullness. So we are constantly under the influence of these 5 negative emotions. And this is what creates karma and what propels us from lifetime to lifetime, rebirth to rebirth. So until we embrace the Dharma and practice the Dharma, this will continue forever and ever and ever. It's happened for beginningless time. We've been chasing after our deluded perceptions, and it hasn't brought us any happiness. So when I say any happiness, I know everyone has happiness to a degree, but it's not really pure or long-lasting. So in Buddhist terms, then the what we call ordinary happiness, in Buddhist terms, we call it the suffering of impermanence. So everything we experience is one kind of suffering or another. We can categorize what we experience in this realm of suffering, which we call samsara, um, into 6 realms. In words like samsara, I'm assuming you know basic Buddhist terminology that everyone knows. Some of the words we'll put in the chat, but I think samsara people know. So the 6 realms of samsara, we are of course in the human realm, where there's kind of a mixture of pain and pleasure. Below us is the animal realm, where beings are lost in confusion. They don't have the ability to cognize their situation and strategize a way to get out of their situation. Then hungry ghosts who are so busy with hunger that they also have no ability to strategize. Thank you, Matthew. Strategize a way out of their suffering. And below them are the hell realms. And I don't have to tell you what that means. People suffer intense, continuous pain for long periods of time. Supposedly above us is the jealous God realm, where people fight a lot, and then the heaven realm, which is where people just have fun, but it doesn't last for long enough. And those comprise the 6 realms. What's important to realize is when we talk about the 6 realms, um, none of them offer a path to escape from samsara, except for a very small subset of the human realm. That subset we call the precious human birth. And I'll refer to that intermittently in the talk, but you're probably already familiar with this terminology. So we have the 6 realms. Let's get a clear picture of what's going on. There's 6 realms. We scoot from one realm to another, and to another, uh, from one realm of suffering to one kind of suffering to another kind of suffering, on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And every once in a while, there's a little gap. And in that little gap, we have a precious birth, and we have the opportunity to escape from this cycle. So that's the 6 realms. Other than that, another way of looking at is the 6 bardos. So all we experience also can be classified according to 6 bardos. Bardo means intermediate stage. Right now, we're in the intermediate stage of life and death. We are between the experience of being born and the experience of dying, and that's the bardo of life and death. I don't have to tell you what that's like because that's what we know. Within the bardo of this life, there's the bardo of dream, which you're also quite familiar with. And in the Kagyu system, we also talk about the deep sleep. We separate dream and deep sleep into 2 separate categories. And in the Nyima system, they have the bardo of meditation, which is not just any old meditation, but it's the time you spend meditating correctly on the nature of mind. So either way, you have 3 bardos associated with this life. Then you have 3 bardos associated with the transit from this life to the next life, which is more of what concerns us in this talk. First is when we dissolve into death. That's called the bardo of the moment of death. Then there is the arising of visionary states, which is called the luminosity, bardo of luminosity, or the bardo of dharmata. And then the bardo where we are hunting for a new birth. We have more or less the sense of being in a solid body. Um, and it appears that we're in a solid body, but we're still dead. And we realize we're dead and we're drawn towards different places to be reborn in. So I've talked about six bardos and six realms, but another way it's more relevant for this talk, excuse me, is possible rebirths. We can classify possible rebirths into four, and that's more important for today's talk. First, if we're very good practitioners, we can become enlightened as we die in the moment of death. Uh, when everything associated with this life ceases, the nature of the mind vividly appears. And if we've become accustomed to meditating on the nature of the mind, we can realize enlightenment and we don't lose it. That's pretty much dependent on our practice of Dzogchen or Mahamudra or similar practices. Um, and in the subsequent bardo, the one of Dharmata or luminosity, when the appearances of the deities appear, if we recognize them as the play of awareness, the manifestation of the luminous nature of our mind, then we also can become enlightened on the spot. The trouble, that sounds good, good luck. Uh, and there are many practices. For the bardo of the moment of death, we usually think of the practices of Trekchö and Dzogchen and practices of Mahamudra, uh, Latong. Sorry, Matthew. uh, uh, Insight meditation. And for the bardo of luminosity, our deity practice, the deity practice is a simulation of that bardo. And if we're very advanced practitioners, we'll be doing the Nyingma practice of Togel, where we are actually directly experience the luminosity while we're alive. The downside or the caveat for these is that these bardos don't last very long for normal people. So if you read the Tibetan Book of the Dead, they'll say day one, such and such a uh, deity arises, day two, and it sounds like you have a day to figure it out and hopefully meditate on it. But they're called meditation days. A meditation day is related to how long you can remain meditating in the nature of your mind, which, here we go, Matthew, we're calling Rikpa. We use the word Rikpa for awareness. Good job. And a meditation day in the Bardo is equal to about 3 times the average period you can spend in Rikpa in your daily meditation. One of my teachers, Sokyi Rinpoche, says that generally Western students spend about 1 or 2 seconds in Rigpa when they meditate at a time. Do the math, then you in the Bardo will have 3 to 6 seconds to pull off these meditations, which is a little challenging. There are other caveats. Hopefully your guru will be there to give your instructions. But generally, these are challenging things to do, and they're based on advanced meditation. Another way to look at it, what I've been taught, is that we can compare these bardos to the bardo of sleep. When we fall asleep, it's like dying. So we fall asleep into deep sleep. That would more or less correspond to the uh, bardo of the moment of death. And we can judge our meditation by how well we can rest in Rigpa while we are dissolving into deep sleep. The bardo of dream corresponds to the the bardo of luminosity, and once again we can uh, judge our progress by how well we can rest in Rigpa during dream. Okay, so I said there's 4 possible rebirths. That was about becoming enlightened as we die, or immediately after we die. And if you're a good practitioner, I don't want to discourage you, but it's certainly beyond my ability as a meditator, my ability as a teacher, and what I'm planning to talk about today. What I'm planning to talk about today will be more down to earth. Our second option, that where we can be reborn, is let's go to the bottom now. We can be reborn anywhere in the 6 realms where we won't meet the Dharma, which is what happens to most beings. And then we cycle in samsara for who knows how long until we have an opportunity to practice. So since we're here in this room, or in the Zoom, whatever it's called, I feel confident that we've probably accumulated the causes for a precious human birth. And I sincerely hope that for everybody. So that's the top of it, and the bottom, top enlightenment, bottom any of the 6 realms without the Dharma. Then in the middle, we can be reborn in a pure land or as with a precious human birth. We'll talk in some degree about the Pure Land and meditation for the Pure Land towards the end of my talk. General, you probably know, it's a good place to be reborn. We continue on the path effortlessly in the presence of whatever Buddha's Pure Land it is. Normally we think of Amitabha, but it could be any Buddha. They all have pure lands. It's a natural expression of their enlightened awareness. If we've done a practice called POA in this life, there is a chance we can just exit as we're dying at the top of our head and go to the Pure Land. Otherwise, in the bardo of becoming, which is the one we spend most of our time in, we have the ability to go anywhere we think. So if I think of visiting my auntie in Chicago, I'll zip to Chicago. She won't know I'm there, but a bardo being has that ability. So if a bardo being remembers the Pure Land, there's a good chance that they'll be able to go to the Pure Land. And then there's the precious human birth. So I feel confident that we'll all get precious human births, unless we've been very naughty. But you can think, well, then why do we have to worry if we're going to at least get a perfect, precious human birth? And that's a question I've been struggling with myself. And the answer I've come up with is there's a great variety of precious human births. I've been practicing 50 years and I've had wonderful opportunities and wonderful teachings, but it's been a struggle, and I can't say I have any really great progress or any signs or anything in my practice. So that's kind of one part of a precious human, but I still have a precious human birth. I have no doubt about it. But I think of someone I once knew in Nepal. He was the Umze or chant master at the monastery where I studied, the big white monastery in Bodhanath, Nepal. And as a kid, he was the chant master. He went off after he was a monk. He went off and he did a 3 retreat, and I guess it went very, very well because now he's a retreat master and he's teaching retreat uh, at our center in the Pyrenees. We have a 3 retreat center in the Pyrenees, and he's been the retreat master. And I think of him as another extreme of the precious human birth. It's a very, very good precious human birth. There's someone else that's also teaching for my teacher, Chokyi Nyima Rinpoche, who's a Kempo. He's a young monk who went through the whole academic course and excelled at it, and now is qualified to teach Buddhist philosophy. He also travels around the world teaching Buddhist philosophy. So this retreat master and the scholar, the 2 aspects of Buddhist practice, the study and meditation, are kind of manifestations of the precious human birth. And I'm a manifestation, and you are manifestations of the precious human birth. So I would like for myself and everybody, that if I'm going to be reborn as a human being, it's more like those 2 monks that I mentioned and less like me. So for that reason, it makes sense to not take it for granted what's going to happen after we die, that there's a great variety uh, and a great benefit to exerting oneself in this life in order to get the best possible rebirth in our next life. Okay. So the class is meditations and the bardo. That was just an introductory talk. In a normal class, I would open it to questions, but I think that's confusing in the Zoom, so we're not going to. So the rest of the talk is going to be about meditation in this life. So very, very important point. If you have a teacher already in this life, your meditation is what he or she has taught you to do. I don't want to create any doubt and for you to think, my great master has taught me to do such and such a meditation, and Bruce said to do this. Ignore what I said. Um, follow your teacher. I'm not a guru. Please just follow your teacher. Assume they're right and I'm wrong. Then you might be asking them, why bother being here? The answer to that is, I might say something that gives you a little insight into what you're already doing. Or if you don't have a teacher whose guidance you have access to, it might give you some provisional practices to do in the meantime. And that's my goal, to kind of provide an overview of how we can meditate in this life so that when we start to age, when we start to die, and in the bardo, it'll go better for us than if we didn't follow the advice I have to give. Once I tried to study Tibetan, and I read a few books of teachings, real struggle, but what I do remember is that meditation books always start, the first word is find a quiet place to meditate. That's always the first word of instruction. So for us, generally, that's good words of advice. But I think in the context of what we're looking forward to in our lives, we should also be prepared to take what we're experiencing as a challenge. So we want good conditions, and if you have a chance to do retreat, please do it. But if something comes up, don't think, this is a bummer. Don't think, I have to correct this condition in order to meditate because it's too distracting. Think instead that it is a taste of what's going to happen as you get older and start dying. So if I'm distracted by dogs barking in my room as I'm meditating, I might get annoyed. But what is it going to be like when I'm in a hospital bed and there are all sorts of nurses and doctors and all sorts of those weird machines that I'm plugged into? What's it going to be like in terms of quiet? The dogs barking will seem trivial compared to the noise of these machines, etc. So if I think when the dogs are barking, okay, Bruce, you are preparing yourself for being in the bardo. Take this as an instruction and a guide for this is a preparation. You're going to have kind of more and more confusing and difficult conditions. I tend to be sleepy a lot. And also, when I'm sleepy, I always think, well, if I could just take a nap, then I could meditate. But as I get older and older, then I'll be sleepy more and more. And as I approach death, I can't just say, hey, let's just stop this practice. I need a nap. I don't want to, let's just slow down on the death and dying part. It's not possible. So the point is, whatever is happening that's distracting, think of that as a reminder of what's going to happen under 3 conditions. Those conditions are aging, dying, and being in the bardo. All 3 of them are going to be a lot more distracting and more difficult to practice in than our normal everyday life. Okay, so it's important to develop that habit. So those are conditions. So I was struggling preparing this talk, but then I realized that really what I wanted to talk about are 4, use the word skills in my notes, 4 different skills that are, the first 3 I think are necessary, essential skills for navigating the processes we're talking about. The 4th is a bonus skill. And the rest of my talk will be going through those skills and hopefully having time to do some practice for some of them. The first of the 3 essential skills is not really a meditation, it's more a contemplation. It means truly developing faith in the teachings and trust in the Triple Gem. None of us, well, I don't know who's here, but I think it's safe to say almost none of us here were born into Buddhist households. So we were not born with a faith in rebirth, or a faith in karma, or a faith in Buddha nature, any of those things. And we have a lot of habits mental habits that come both from how we were raised, kind of on an emotional level, which we don't need to go into here, but also on a conceptual level. Um, there's a view in Buddhist philosophy called Karvakas or Sharvakas. It means basically nihilistic materialism. And the scientific worldview, where only scientific things are true, is a version of that. And my teacher feels it's kind of the root at most of the problems we're having these days. But we were raised in that sort of thing. We were not raised to believe in rebirth, not raised to believe in karma. And because of that, when we hear the teachings, we have come to believe in them, but we may have some residual doubts. I have taught some people, they might even be sitting in this room, I don't know, who after decades still have some residual doubts about reincarnation or rebirth. And that's completely up to them. Nobody is saying that everyone has to believe the same thing. And nothing works that I'm right or we're right and they're wrong. But the point is that when we have conviction in these things, then the meditative aspect works better. That's just the way it is. If our house is burning down and we think, well, maybe the house is burning down, then we saunter out of the house. But if we see the flames, we dash out as fast as we can. So that's called conviction in samsara. So, of course, probably everyone here knows the four thoughts that turn the mind. We contemplate the four thoughts that turn the mind to develop an understanding of death and impermanence, the different rebirths. But all that is based on really believing in those things. The more wholeheartedly we believe in rebirth, in karma, in the Buddha nature, then the more those meditations will strike to our heart. The more we believe in those things, the more completely mind-boggling it is that we had the good fortune to meet the Buddha Dharma. Can you imagine? There's all these realms of beings that never meet the Buddha Dharma, and there's all these beings within our own realm, all the bugs in our house, all the doggies we like to play with. None of them uh, can practice the Dharma. That should blow everybody's mind. That should blow everybody's mind. And if it doesn't blow your mind, it's probably because you have some doubts about death and rebirth and those sort of things. If you really thought your house was burning down and someone offered you an escape, you would think that's amazing when all hope is lost. So it's really important to develop that conviction. So contemplating what I said, I am calling the first skill of my talk. Okay. Developing a conviction, an unshakable conviction, and then from that shakable conviction, an unshakable and heart-rending trust in the triple gem, that someone is there, that someone has appeared in our world and selflessly has given us everything we need to escape from our burning house. That's overwhelming to contemplate. The second skill is our old friend mindfulness. and Matthew wanted me to present names and show books. A lot of what I say on mindfulness now is from this book called Emotional Rescue by Dzogchen Punlap Rinpoche, and Matthew very kindly uh, put it in the chat, the name in the chat. Right? Is that how it works? He put the name in the chat? Okay. Did you get it? You get it? Okay. Many of us come to Buddhism. We may have started with Jack Kornfield or someone like that, um, doing Theravada practice, and we graduated on to Tibetan Buddhism. And in Tibetan Buddhism, and some of us haven't, some of us just jumped right into, probably the newer students just jumped right into Tibetan Buddhism. And except for this book by Dzogchen Punlap Rinpoche, I can't think of any book uh, that clearly teaches mindfulness that written by a Tibetan Buddhist author. Um, so if you read Tibetan sources, especially Kagyu, you'll see mindfulness mentioned all the time and the importance of mindfulness. Matthew's really good at this. Uh, and but often clear instruction is not that easily available. So Dzogchen Punlap, so that's why I'm emphasizing it now. I'm not taking it for granted that you have a background in mindfulness practice. It isn't part of the Nundro, for example. In mindfulness practice, Dzogchen Punlap Rinpoche uses an expression, mindful gap. Mindful gap, and he has a little saying called mind the gap. The opposite of mindful gap is a Tibetan word, Shenpa. I'll let Matthew do it. Shenpa. Shenpa has started to be used in Western Tibetan Buddhist circles it means literally attachment, but it has a more of a stronger meaning like fixation or mesmerization. If that's a real word. Um, so mindful gap means that with appearances, your thoughts and your emotions, you are able to have some distance between the things that arise and the aware meditating mind. Okay? If you don't have that, um, if you haven't practiced that on your cushion, then what's going to happen when your body starts falling apart and you're in pain all the time or you're groggy? You will just be mesmerized. There'll just be Shenpa for all these phenomena, and you'll be afraid. You're afraid of what's going to happen. You'll be attached to your family. So no matter what teachings you receive and how profound they are, and what kind of experience you might have had before this, if you don't have any control over your Shenpa, then you will just be like an ordinary person going through these processes. So I would say mindfulness, being able to practice a mindful gap, is an essential skill for preparing for death. And practicing mindful gap is a meditation, which we will do. Mm. So what we're going to do is something you've all done a million times, but just for emphasis and to put things in context, I thought it's really important to do it now And because now we're doing it in the context of dying. So we're going to do the meditation that these people of my age, we did as our first meditation. I don't know if it's still done, following the breath, but we'll do it as a guided meditation. So I'm going to hit my little gong. You might want to get into a more meditative posture if you're not. And then we'll just do this for a few minutes. Very gently place your attention on the in and out breath as it passes through your nostrils. If you're stuffy, you can breathe through your nose, but for now, let's just assume it's through your nostrils. The air goes in, you're aware of it going in. The air goes out, you're aware of it going out. You will be distracted, most likely in the form of thoughts. There are other distractions, but most likely in the form of thoughts. Uh, Notice thoughts, return to the breath. As you're doing this, take note that when you're following your breath, note that sense of, now I have a mindful gap. When you've noticed you've been distracted, you notice that I've just experienced Shenpa. So you either experience mindful gap or Shenpa, and take note of that. So if you develop skill and mindful gap, then when you're being chased by giant dogs in the bardo of becoming, and you feel incredible fear, you'll remember the teachings on mindful gap, and you go, oh, I'm in the bardo of becoming, being, and then these aren't real dogs. And then you go, I really want to be in the Pure Land, and you think of the Pure Land. If you don't have a mindful gap, that would be more difficult. I think that's really straightforward and easy to understand. So, mindfulness practice, please don't have an attitude that that's just something for beginners, because without mindfulness, none of the other practices really have any room to operate. No matter how profound your instructions are, it's hard to practice them if you're constantly distracted. Okay, so that's the second essential skill. The third essential skill is bodhicitta, which if you are Tibetan Buddhist practitioners, you know bodhicitta in this context is the wish to attain enlightenment so you can liberate all sentient beings. We are not practicing for our own benefit. We are not practicing to have some sort of happy rebirth or be healthy or famous in this life. We're practicing for one purpose only, to be able to liberate all sentient beings who have been our mothers. So bodhicitta provides the directionality to the processes we're discussing. So we may be practicing and we may be mindful and we may have conviction, but about what? So we need the bodhicitta. The bodhicitta is what propels us in a certain direction. And if we have bodhicitta and it's strong, then that's all we need, really. Because if we go through the death process and we're thinking, may I be able to use everything that's happening to develop my altruism. And if we're using the dying and the rebirth process to go, I want to be reborn somewhere where I can be able to benefit others, then that will be the driving force in our mind. And that being the driving force in our mind will propel us into a precious human birth where, due to that strong aspiration, we will be able to then find the Buddha Dharma and continue practicing. Bodhicitta. So bodhicitta, the main formal meditation of bodhicitta, you probably know, but we'll also do it for a few minutes. And that's Tonglen, taking and sending, or sending and taking, I don't remember. So taking and sending is where we uh, take others' suffering and send out our well-being to others. But because of the nature of the talk, I want to emphasize uh, we're also really wishing that the other, through your practice, will set forth on the practice to enlightenment, develop bodhicitta themselves, and attain enlightenment. Okay. So once again, it'll be a guided meditation. And to keep things really simple, we will just start with one person. Select one person that you have a pretty uncomplicated, positive relationship with. And imagine that person. And excuse me, I will use the masculine pronoun because I'm too old to figure the pronoun stuff out. So I'll just use a masculine pronoun unless I remember not to. And we'll do some tonglen. We do it with the breath, and I will guide you through it. Good posture. Please bring to mind a loved one. Imagine You say them. Imagine them standing in front of you or sitting, whatever works. As you do that, imagine all their suffering, that no matter how they present themselves or no matter what you know about them, everyone still has a core of misery. Everyone has all sorts of different aches and pains, different emotional issues, different disappointments in their lives. So think of those which you either know or surmise about the loved person in front of you, and let yourself just rest for a moment, contemplating that person's collection of woes. Now, traditionally, we do this practice linking it to the breath, and we link into visualization. So I will present it like that. If you have other ways of doing it, that's fine. So imagine that collection of woes in the form of some kind of unpleasant, let's just say black gunk, slime and coal and smoke, and it exits their body through their nostrils, and you inhale it, and it enters your heart. As you exhale all your virtue, merit, and happiness to the other, and it enters them and slowly reduces their amount of woe, of amount of misery and suffering. So do that for a bit and imagine that their uh, suffering gets less and less, and that they get everything they desire and become more and more happy, healthy, and content. Now think from the depth of your being that you wish your loved one would awaken to the path of the Dharma, develop bodhicitta, and practice the Dharma, and make the wish that you can be of utmost assistance, that everything you do will be a support for that person's accomplishing those goals. So those three skills, conviction and refuge being number one, uh, mindfulness of the mindful gap being number two, and okay, um, and to generating bodhicitta, number three. Those are essential. It'd be hard to imagine um, what's going to come next being successful if you don't have some good foundation in all three of those. Now, what someone is mentioning is there's teachings somewhere, I didn't get to catch it all, about Tonglen. There are many ways of teaching Tonglen. There are many ways of practicing it. So don't think I'm encouraging you to do it in a different way than you've already learned. Um, I taught it the way I did, in this way, the guided meditation, just to very quickly elucidate the points that I've been trying to make in the talk. So there's many ways of doing it. So those are the three basic, what I'm calling for the purposes of the talk, essential skills. The fourth skill is devotion. And I'm associating devotion with Vajrayana. We don't really see devotion. We have faith and conviction and all those sort of things in Hinayana and Mahayana. But I like if you talk to your Zen friends or your Theravada friends, they don't pray to their gurus. That's just a completely alien concept. Um, so there are other skills in the Vajrayana. Um, the two of them I think of, that I thought of in preparing, were pure perception, uh, which is associated with deity practice, and the view of the nature of the mind, which is associated with Dzogchen and Mahamudra practice. So, as I said earlier, I'm not qualified to teach those, and we're not going to do them. But devotion, I think, is something very powerful. And if we have a good foundation, devotion may be where we land in all this. Um, where's my notes? So devotion means yearning, longing, calling out for help. Like there's a prayer in Tibetan, Lama Chino. Uh, and I think putting it once again into the context of dying, uh, when we die, when we get old, we might feel pretty overwhelmed. I know that at 75, I do. And I am unabashedly dualistic and religious about my devotion. Uh, I'm not trying to be a smart guy and say everything's the nature of the mind or that my devotion is in Rikpa, and simply praying to someone for help because I often feel I need it. And I have a feeling that the closer I get to death and the more my mind and body deteriorates, then the more devotion will be something that I depend on. Where am I? Um, so generally in Vajrayana practice, it's good to, you probably know this, you generally need an empowerment, reading, transmission, and oral instructions. So I've picked some simple practices which I feel confident we can all do without those three. And we will focus on the devotional side of all three of those if we have time to do them. I think we will. So one thing we can always do, and once again I'm thinking of as we age and die, is we can simply hold the mawa and recite a mantra. One thing that I was thinking of as I was preparing a long time ago, my wife Susan, who hopefully is here, um, and I went to uh, something on on death and dying in Portland at the university in Portland, and there was a teacher from the Shambhala tradition who had made a movie about old home, Tibetan uh, old homes, well, homes for old people. And these were people that were penniless refugees who were really, really sick. And they really had nowhere else to go except these old homes. I can't stop saying that. Anyways, uh, and these people were uniformly joyful. It was really an eye-opening thing. They just, no matter how much pain they were in, no matter how poor they were happy just to sit and recite mantras. A lot of them had those strange prayer wheels that Tibetans like to use, rosaries, and they would just say mantras. So maybe now we feel we're more sophisticated than that, which is probably true. But as we start to deteriorate, these are things that become more and more useful. So you may find that, as you're lying in a hospital bed, you may not be able to do an elaborate deity practice, but you can do the mantra from that deity. You can hold a rosary in your hand, and you might even get someone to play a recording of that mantra. So that's a simple way of using Vajrayana techniques. And in the context of what I'm saying, then we feel devotion towards that deity. So we always have the thing in Vajrayana of whether the deity is inside us or outside of us. And that's up to your proclivities. They're both. The deities are both. But you may find as you're uh, starting to dissolve that thinking of the deity in much the same way that a Christian or a Catholic may think of Mother Mary works. Don't be shy to be theistic. It really works. Um, I come from a Kagyu background, and in the Kagyus, there's a saying, uh, a yogi's eyes are never dry. We think of our gurus and and we cry at thinking of our gurus. It's not that we're thinking of the nature of our mind and crying. We're thinking of this seemingly embodied human being, and our yearning and our longing and our need for help is so strong that we cry. And we just do that all the time. And that's the essence of the Kagyu lineage right there. So that's um, an introduction. So that's the fourth skill is devotion. So I'm going to take a little break. And then I think when we get back, I'm going to do three little practices, but I think this is a little late. I'll just do two little practices so we have time for time for questions. So how long a break, organizers? 5 minutes, 10 minutes? 5 minutes? Okay, quick 5 minute break. The Heart of Unconditional Love by Tuku Tundup. Tuku Tundup passed away a few years ago. He spent most of his life as a Dodo Chen Rinpoche's translator and a scholar at Harvard. and didn't really teach very much. But he's written a few books on healing. This is the last one of them, and they're definitely written with Westerners in mind. And I think he has an insight into the Western heart and what is missing in some of us, kind of the brokenness in some of us, including myself. And his books touch them very, very profoundly, and the meditations are very effective, very, very effective. And I've taught them, and when I travel, I like to do weekend workshops in them, um, because I think he is touching something that we really need as Westerners. So what we're going to do now is a Chenrezig practice. Chenrezig is a practice you don't need an empowerment for, and we'll just use a very, very short liturgy that was compiled by um, one of my main teachers and some of your teachers, Gyatrul Rinpoche. And when we get to the mantra section, I will read a guided meditation. And this is from Tuku Tondrup. And this is seeing Chenrezig as outside of yourself. We're not visualizing ourselves. This is emphasizing the idea of devotion. So the idea is the more devotion we have for Chenrezig, the more blessings we receive. So we're going to be visualizing those blessings. So you're going to try to cultivate, as you're saying the mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, you're going to be trying to cultivate devotion. Yearning. Yearning. Now, there are three things that I like to speak of in practice. When it comes to some practices like this, there are three things that bring the practice to life. If you're visualizing Chenrezig, for example, first is to really believe that he's there and not just a mental creation on your part. You've all probably heard of Guru Rinpoche sleeping on your doorstep and stuff like that. It's all to make the point that these deities and the great lamas are not limited by space and time. Our perception is limited, so we may not actually see him physically, but that doesn't mean he's not there. So when you visualize Chenrezig, just take a moment. Maybe I'll say it when I'm doing the guided meditation. What it would be like if you heard a knock on the door and you opened the door and there was Chenrezig, That would be the most amazing thing you've ever experienced in your life. It would be just completely beyond mind-blowing. You'd probably pass out from ecstasy. And the second thing is that to believe that he has unconditional love for you. If he doesn't care about you, it doesn't matter if he's in your room or not. He may just need to get a glass of water or something. And third, that with his love and his presence, his blessings also have the power to transform you. If you think of these three things when you're doing devotional practices, and the practice seems a little on the sluggish side, try to remember those. They're really helpful. Okay. I remember how to do this we'll do this liturgy. If I can find it. Short to see. Does everybody see a Chenrezig practice on their screen? Okay. So we're not going to do exactly what it says. We'll do, you can all repeat with me. Probably better if you all stay muted or it'll sound pretty cacophonous. Until enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and the excellent assembly. Through the merit of generosity and other virtues, may I accomplish Buddhahood for the benefit of beings. Visualize in front of oneself the Buddha of compassion, Avalokitesvara, white in color with one face and four arms. Two palms are pressed together at the heart, and the other two hands are holding a crystal mala in the right hand and a lotus in the left. Adorned with jewels and silks, you are seated in the full lotus posture upon a lotus and moon seat. Everyone, to the unstained Lord, whose body is pure and is white in color, whose head is adorned with the perfect Buddha, who views living beings with the eyes of compassion, to Avalokitesvara I pray. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme. So thinking of the mantra as prayer, pray by chanting Om Mani Padme Hum with heartfelt devotion that opens your heart with the energy of joy of being in the presence of the Buddha of loving kindness. Trust in his presence, his love, and his enlightened qualities. Receiving the blessings. Then from the Buddha's body, visualize and feel that his blessings come in the form of infinite beams of wisdom light, lights of his wisdom, love, and power, with energy waves of blissful heat, or light. These bright lights of loving kindness, wishing joy for all, enter your body, and all your unwholesome thoughts, negative emotions, and evil deeds, karma, as well as your suffering, are totally dispelled in the form of darkness from every particle of your body. Do this over and over again. I'll read that again. From the Buddha's body, visualize and feel that its blessings come in the form of infinite beams of rainbow light, lights of his wisdom, love, and power, with energy, with energy waves of blissful heat. These bright lights of loving kindness, wishing joy for all, enter your body, and all of your unwholesome thoughts, negative emotions, and evil deeds, as well as your suffering, are totally dispelled in the form of darkness from every particle of your body. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. By the virtue of this practice, may I swiftly accomplish the Lord Avalokitesvara, and may all beings without exception be liberated to this level. So if you don't have a practice you're already doing Chenrezig practices is excellent. It's excellent. When those Tibetans were sitting around in the old age home, that's what they were doing. They were saying Mani mantras. That's what the great lamas are always saying under their breath. So that's a wonderful practice to do, a wonderful skill, and something you can really rely on in all stages of your life and death. So finally, the final practice, uh, Amitabha practice. Before I go, if you like the Tukutonda meditations, on my website, lamabruce.com, there are several varieties of guided meditations of me reading from Tukutondra's book, Boundless Healing. You're welcome to access that if you want. You could play that if you're sick in bed. That would be great. Tukutundra's words. And also some guided meditations on the four thoughts written by Guru Rinpoche, his words. Lastly, Amitabha Pure Land. So we might as well aspire to be reborn in the Pure Land. And whether we'll make it or not, it's hard to say. So there are two ways to approach being reborn in Amitabha's Pure Land. One is the practice of Poa, and one are the four causes of rebirth in the Pure Land. Poa, as you probably all know, is a practice where through visualization, prayer, and breathing and shouting, you actually open a hole on the top of your head. And the theory is when you die, you exit through that hole. You remain conscious and you exit through that hole and are there and therefore escorted to the Pure Land. So let's just say it's great if you can practice it, but I would have a plan B. It's not for certain that if you exit through the hole, you'll go to the Pure Land, as opposed to not just going to a precious human birth. And secondly, it's not certain that you'll remember to do the practice as you're dying. So keep in mind the other aspects of Pure Land practice, if that's what you aspire to. So the other way to think of the Pure Land is through the four causes of rebirth in Dewa Chen. Dewa Chen is the Pure Land. So I took notes. My Lama has taught it, and I took notes, and I couldn't make any sense of the notes. So I asked Google AI, what are the four causes of rebirth in Dewa Chen? And may Google AI be reborn as an omniscient AI or something? I don't know. Um, it's kind of weird to quote AI, but here we are. So they definitely correspond to what my teacher was saying, but in a way that's really clear. Because I'm a bad note taker, not because he's a bad teacher. Um, Four causes. First, generating bodhicitta. Aspiring for enlightenment for the benefit of all beings is a fundamental cause of being reborn in the Pure Land. So here we go back to bodhicitta. It's really the thing that runs through all of the teachings and what to do. Second, accumulating merit. This is done through many virtuous practices, such as making offerings, prostrations, and performing prayers. And what Google didn't say, the first three perfections of generosity, moral morality, and patience are mostly about generating merit. The last two of meditation and discriminating wisdom generate wisdom. So we should try to generate as much merit as possible. Also, not in Google. Things that are very, very meritorious to do is like what the people at TLC, our hosts, are doing. So we all owe a debt of gratitude. Hopefully you'll learn something from this. If not, all the other presentations and things that are available. The amount of merit these people are accumulating is beyond my imagination. And one thing that I keep hearing is very important, taking care of older people. That includes us. But the Buddha said taking care of your parents, aging parents, is the same as taking care of the Buddha himself. So these are important ways to generate merit, and they are the second cause of being reborn in the Pure Land. Third, repeatedly bringing the Buddha field to mind. This involves a focused and consistent meditation on the outer and inner aspects of the inner means, the nature of the mind of Dewa Chen and its inhabitants. If we think of Dewa Chen as a place, that's the outer Dewa Chen. If we think of it as a manifestation of awareness, that's the inner Dewa Chen. But repeatedly visualizing the Buddha field, which is what we're going to do, and praying to be reborn there, which we do by reciting the mantra, which is what we're going to do, is something we should do if we want to be reborn there. What we're going to do now makes a nice daily practice. Uh, if you really want to be reborn in Dewa Chen, you might want to get more teachings on it and empowerment and learn the whole practice for it. There's commentaries by Karma Chagme on it. Kashi Choling does a monthly Dewa Amitabha practice. Participate in that would be really, really helpful and good for you. And also what we're going to be doing. Hopefully, there's a way you'll be able to get the sheet. I'm not sure how this works. It's good to do if you know someone that's dying or has recently died, to say the prayer and the mantra. Okay, so this is the last practice we're going to do. That's the four causes of being reborn in Dewa Chen. This is something we can do in our life and probably try to remember. Okay, one last share. Yeah, sure. Generally, I'm a big fan of doing things in English because that's my language. And Tibetans don't do things in Sanskrit, so why should we do things in Tibetan? Well, that being said, this is a prayer that was actually dictated by Amitabha directly to a young yogi. So I think it's good to uh, say it in Tibetan also, because that's the language he dictated, and we're actually repeating the words of a Buddha. Also, when someone dies and is in the bardo and you're saying the prayer, it's hard to know what language that bardo being will understand. So it's probably good to do both languages. Um, I don't have a nice voice, so I'm just going to read this. Please be muted and read along with me. And at the end, well, then we'll do the Tibetan, the English, and the end. Then there's just this one mantra we say one time, but the mantra we repeat is Om Ame Dewa Ri. Emaho. Notsar Sangye Nangwa Tai Dong, Yesu Jowo Tukje Chenpo Dong, Yontu Sempa Tukchen Tob Namla, Sangye Jansem Pagme Kor Ki Kor, Teki Notsar Paktu Me Pai, Dewa Chenshi Shawa Shinkandir, Dakshin Dine Sepo Gurmatag, Gewa Shengi Barma Chobaru, Deru Kene Nangte Sheltung Shuk, Teki Dakni Munlan Tapadi, Shuktu Sange Jansam Tamsheki, Gekme Drupar Jingi Laptu So, Tayata Benzadria Oa Bodanai Soa. Namaho, the wondrous Buddha of limitless light, with the great compassionate Lord to his right, and the Bodhisattva of great might to his left, is encircled by countless Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. In this pure land, known as Dewa Chen, the happiness, joys, and marvels are beyond all reckoning. As soon as I and others have departed from this life, may we be reborn directly in Dewa Chen, with none of the delay caused by another birth. Once there, may we behold Amitabha's face. May all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the 10 directions give their blessings, that the words of my prayer may come true without any hindrance. Tayata Benzadria Awa Bodhanai Soha Om Ame Dewari, Ome Dewari, Ome Dewari. And I will read a visualization while you're reciting the mantra. Imagine Amitabha in front and focus one pointedly on him. Then go on to his eyes, nose, mouth, ears successively through all the bodily parts of the main deities within the visualization. If one is looking at the eyes or mouth, one cannot at the same time imagine the head mound. That does not matter. Let's take another aspect here. Amitabha sits on a throne that is supported by 8 peacocks. It is believed that these birds, the peacocks, have strong desire and craving, so as a symbol of craving transformed into discriminating wisdom, Amitabha's throne is supported by peacocks. On Amitabha's throne is a 1,000-petaled lotus, which symbolizes that he remains unstained by samsara. Although he has attained liberation, he has not abandoned his body nor entered nirvana, but stays in the world due to his compassion in order to benefit beings. From this visualization, variegated, very colored lights are radiating, filling all space so that everything is transformed into Dewa Chen. All the ground is completely flat, and even, and is made of blue beryl, but is soft, and there is a golden pattern on it. There are all kinds of beautiful flowers, and the trees have various types of jewels. One thinks that every being becomes a bodhisattva with all the major and secondary physical signs. One imagines that from one's own body emanates a multitude of bodhisattvas who look exactly like oneself, millions, hundreds of millions, and needs Chenrezig, countless numbers of bodhisattvas who make confessions of the bad karma and obscurations of all beings, perform prostrations, circumambulations, and so on. They enact the offering of washing the bodies and and offer robes to the Buddha and silks and jewels to the 2 principal bodhisattvas surrounding him. Also, they offer water for the feet that has the 8 special qualities. The emanated bodhisattvas then merge back into oneself. One emanates offering goddesses who offer flowers, incense, light, and so on, which pleases the recipients. And after offering the auspicious substances and so forth, they merge back into oneself. One contemplates that he is looking at oneself or speaking to you, or that he puts his right hand on one's head, your head, and gives a prophecy of your enlightenment. So that basically completes my presentation. Topic was meditation for death and uh, the implication for dying and beyond. And I broke those meditations down into a contemplation of the samsara and the importance of refuge, mindfulness, especially minding the gap so you're not tossed and turned by everything that happens, bodhicitta, which directs you through the whole bardo process and the death process. You just keep your mind on altruism and benefiting others, and you'll cut like a knife through everything. And with these as a foundation, devotion. And once again, to repeat myself, for those of you who are Vajrayana practitioners, then your Vajrayana practice should be very, very helpful. But that varies from everybody, from person to person and teacher to teacher. So we're not going into that there, and we don't have time. So everything I've taught with the idea that nothing is undoable. A lot of Vajrayana practices are very profound, but they're very difficult to do. So I put everything together with the thought that they're doable for us now. And in some sense, they'll be doable even as we get more infirm and sicker and approach death. And hopefully we'll remember in the bardo to do these too. So that was my intention. So hopefully you learned one or two little things that'll help you in the future. And maybe we'll all meet together in the Pure Land as a result of being here together. That would be nice. So I've been told there's a few questions. I think we have just a few minutes for a few questions. So let's, and then I'll do a little bit added at the end. So Julie?
Thank you, Lama Bruce. Yes, there are some questions. The first is, some Western practitioners may not have a close relationship with a Lama, or may not receive ongoing guidance from a Lama, or may receive teachings from various Lamas, yet they are seriously committed to the path. Do you have any advice for such practitioners?
I think that that applies to most people. And I think we're in a beginning stage of Tibetan Buddhism in the West, and I don't think we really have an answer worked out for that. Um, in some organizations, like if you have let's say Zigor Contra Rinpoche, he has a hierarchy of people, like a pyramid, and everybody gets teachings from the people one step above in the pyramid. Um, but I wish I had a really clear answer to that. One of the things I try to do as a teacher is kind of be someone who provides some sort of guidance and help people through that maze of having lots of teachers, lots of teachings, uh, but not one person that you can rely on. So I guess one of the answers I could say without sounding too proud is if you do are confused by all that, get in touch with me and we can just chat on the phone or on Zoom or something like that. Um, I don't know who you are who made the question, but probably I assume you sound quite serious, so I'd be happy to help you. I don't have a better answer though. There's no real easy answer to that, I think. Okay. Hope I do better with the other questions.
Thank you. Please elaborate more on the idea of how deity practice can prepare us for the dying moment.
Okay, this is things that I wasn't going to talk about. Um, Briefly, uh, the deity, everything in deity represents the theoretical understanding of deity practice is based on the three samadhis of development stage. You have to study the three samadhis of development stage, and it'll be correlated to the deity practice. And I'm not going to do that. So I'm 0 for 2. Go on.
Thank you, Lama Bruce. The third question is, if our motivation should be to want to bring all beings to enlightenment, how does that work? How do we grow that motivation in a sincere way when we also read that even the Buddhas can't liberate beings, since beings need to liberate themselves? Is it that what matters is the intensity of the wish to liberate, not the actual capacity? I'm
Well, when we say liberate, I'm sorry, what we mean is provide guidance, the way the Buddha provides guidance. The Buddha liberates basically through the qualities of his speech. And through the qualities of speech, he teaches the Dharma. And through you practicing the Dharma, you become liberated. So that's the main way that Buddhas liberate. They also liberate through their body and mind, but it's through the speech that it's the primary way. So when we say we want to liberate all beings, the primary way that we aspire to do that is to be able to teach them the path to enlightenment. Did I interrupt the
Yeah,
question?
there's a couple more sentences. So the person goes on to say, I'm stuck in the apparent contradiction. Am I quoting from two different levels of teachings? Thank you.
Oh, well, I'm sorry I interrupted because I'm not clear of the
Well,
contradiction.
it seemed that you
Well,
answered the question.
okay, hopefully I answered the question. I'm going to give myself credit for that one. Okay,
The ne-
question 4.
the next question is, can you please talk about what you bring to mind when you aspire to be reborn in a pure realm? So many things come to mind, and I am curious to learn what would be simple to practice and that would also best benefit all.
We're supposed to visualize the Pure Land. And I think if you want to strip it down, visualize Amitabha and have you know, pure faith in Amitabha and pure faith that you have the ability to be reborn there and focus on the motivation. You don't want to go there because it's going to be like a nice resort or something like that with the spongy floors and the singing birds singing the Dharma. You want to go there because you are so anxious to liberate sentient beings, going back to the previous question, that you want a shortcut. So, anyways, the four causes are things you keep in mind. You want to accumulate merit, have the bodhicitta motivation, and imagine the Pure Land and pray to be reborn there. So if you look in sources, Google it. What is the Pure Land like? And you'll get the click on the AI button, and you'll get a long description of what the Pure Land is like. But just start with Amitabha. Amitabha, like we did in the guided meditation, Amitabha on a throne, and really have devotion for him and a wish to be reborn near him so you can quickly attain the qualities like him to liberate beings. Okay.
Thank you. And the last question is, when sitting with a person who is dying, is it more beneficial to recite mantra or do Tonglen or both, depending on the person and their situation and awareness?
There's a misconception among Westerners, and I know this is going to upset some people. I've been studying the Dharma for a long time, and I've never come across anything in a traditional source that says you do Tonglen for somebody to benefit another person. It's a way of generating compassion. And I've never heard the idea that you sit with someone and do Tonglen, and that's supposed to magically transfer their suffering to you and your happiness to them. So I would say I would go with the mantras in that case. You could practice Tonglen in order to kind of fortify your compassion for that person. But I don't think that in any sort of big way you're going to actually literally transform their suffering into yours. That's what Jesus did. And, people worship him all over the world for his ability to do that. It's not something that ordinary people have the ability to do. So that's what I've been taught. I would, use Tonglen to generate pure compassion for the person. But if you're trying to, on a one-to-one basis, help that person, then say a mantra. If the person's dying, then Amitabha would be the best. But anyone that you feel comfortable will create an environment that's beneficial to that person. That will benefit someone. I once asked Choling Rinpoche what's uh, the best practice to do for another person, and he said Tara practice. So if you're at a loss and you know Tara's mantra, then say Tara's mantra.
All right, thank you so much.
Okay,
And I would like to,
I'm not finished.
oh, okay.
Okay. Well, what I was wanted to say is I hope I made sense. I'm sorry for I didn't do so well on the questions. Um, I teach classes. Everyone's welcome to come. I'm starting one on Wednesday, and I'm happy to talk to people one-on-one. Whatever I can do to help, I'm happy to help. People, I wish I had a big brother in the Dharma over the last 50 years, just someone who knew maybe a little bit more than me and that I could chat with rather than always, you know, being with a great Lama in a room of 500 people. So I'm happy to do that. I have a website, but it's not really up to date, lamabruce.com. But generally it is up to date. My webmaster is on vacation. Um, so I just would, yeah, like to be of help. And dedication to merit we do after your closing words or before?
Before.
Okay, then we'll do the dedication, and then Julie will say her last. The first one is by Shanti Deva. I will probably say a few words on some of them. By this merit, may every single sentient being abandon all forms of non-virtue and always practice virtue. May they never be apart from the awakened mind and always train in the Bodhisattva's conduct. May they be cared for by all the Buddhas and give up actions of an evil nature. His Holiness Tujin Rinpoche, very relevant part. At this very moment, for the people and nations of this earth, May not even the names of disease, famine, war, and suffering be heard, but rather may pure conduct, merit, wealth, and prosperity increase, and may supreme good fortune and well-being always arise. The next prayer was written by my teacher, and he said it's an important prayer to recite. And this is the prayer I think of when the world seems overwhelmingly dark. I remember the words of this prayer, so I'd like to share that with you. Auspiciously, the teacher has arrived within this world. Auspiciously, the teachings are still shining like the sun. Auspiciously, the families of teachers and students grow and prosper well. Auspiciously, for a long time, we pray the teachings will remain. And the prayer, I don't know who wrote it, but it's relevant to our time, our situation here. And you're probably familiar with it. Through all my births, may I not be separated from the perfect Guru, and so enjoy the splendor of Dharma. Perfecting the virtues of the paths and bhumis, may I speedily attain the state of Vajradhara. So, and I pray that whatever motivation you had to come here, whatever you hope to accomplish on your path, and however that impacts you in death and in the bardo, that it manifests effortlessly and quickly, and that you're able to bring happiness to many, many countless sentient beings.